If nothing changes in the next 6 months, your life won't magically improve. It will repeat. Your life doesn't change because you don't. And deep down, you already know that. You're not confused about what to do. You've watched the videos, you've read the advice, you've made the plans. But none of that was the problem. The truth is harder than that. You don't lack information, you lack consistency. Because it's easier to start over than it is to stay long enough to actually become someone new. You felt that cycle before. You get motivated. You set a new routine. You tell yourself, this time I'm serious. And for a few days, maybe even a couple of weeks, you show up. You feel in control. You feel like you're finally becoming the person you were supposed to be. Then something shifts. You get tired, life gets busy, the excitement fades, and without even noticing it happening, you slowly return to what's familiar. Not because you're incapable, but because you didn't stay long enough. Most people don't fail because they're not smart enough. They fail because they quit in the phase where nothing is happening yet. The phase where progress is invisible. The phase where discipline matters more than motivation. A few years ago, someone close to me was trapped in that exact loop. He was 27, living in a small apartment, behind on bills, constantly stressed. He would wake up already tired, go to a job he didn't care about, and come home every night mentally drained. His average screen time was over 6 hours a day, scrolling, watching, escaping. Not because he didn't want more, but because it felt easier than facing how stuck he really was. He tried to change, many times. He signed up for the gym, quit after 3 weeks. He bought online courses, never finished them. He downloaded productivity apps, deleted them a month later, every time he started strong, every time he stopped early. Until one night, after realizing another month had passed without anything changing, he did something different. No big plan, no dramatic speech. He sat down, grabbed a notebook, and wrote one sentence. Give yourself 6 months. No excuses. That decision didn't feel powerful. It felt simple, almost too simple. But it was the first time he stopped chasing quick results and started committing to time. The first month was frustrating. Nothing changed externally. Same job, same problems, same doubts. The only difference was this. He kept showing up even when it felt pointless. The second month was quieter, less resistance, fewer internal arguments. He stopped negotiating with himself and started acting without overthinking every step. By the third month, something deeper shifted. Not his circumstances, but his identity. He wasn't trying to be disciplined anymore. He was becoming someone who simply did what needed to be done. And by the 6th month, the results finally caught up. He looked different. He thought differently. He carried himself differently. Opportunities didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. He became the kind of person who could see and take them. Behavioral science suggests that lasting habit change and identity shifts don't happen overnight. They are built through consistent repetition over months. But most people never experience that transformation because they quit too early, they restart too often, they choose comfort right before change begins, and that's why their life stays the same. But what if you didn't do that this time? What if, instead of chasing motivation, you committed to something simpler and harder? 6 months, not perfect, not extreme, just consistent. Because you don't need a completely new life. You need to become someone who doesn't quit. And if you already know someone who's stuck in that cycle, starting, stopping, doubting, repeating, someone who keeps saying they want more but hasn't been able to follow through, share this video with them, because this might be the moment everything finally starts to change. Chapter 1. Stop restarting your life. You don't have a discipline problem, you have a restarting problem. Every time you restart, you reset your progress. Every time you reset, you delay your life. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're trying, they think they're improving. But what they're actually doing is starting over, again and again. Just with a different plan each time. New routine, new mindset, new motivation, same outcome. Think about your last few attempts to change your life. You got serious, you made a plan, you told yourself, this time is different. And for a while, it was. You woke up earlier, you stayed focused, you felt in control. Then something small broke the rhythm. You missed a day, you got tired, you didn't feel like it. And instead of continuing imperfectly, you stopped completely. A few days later, you told yourself you'd start fresh on Monday. That feels productive, it feels clean, but it's not progress. Restarting is just quitting in disguise. A few years ago, someone I worked with lived inside that cycle. His name was Daniel. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't incompetent. If anything, he had more potential than most people around him. But every time I saw him, he was chasing a new version of himself. One month he was waking up at 5 a.m., talking about discipline and morning routines. 2 weeks later, he was back to hitting snooze and rushing into work half awake. Then he got into fitness, bought new clothes, signed up for a gym, tracked everything. 3 weeks later, he stopped going, said he was too busy. After that, it was online courses, coding, marketing, side hustles. He would start strong, watch videos for a few days, take notes, and then disappear. No closure, no follow-through, just another reset. One afternoon, I walked past his desk and saw him staring at his screen, not working, just sitting there, scrolling, switching tabs, looking distracted. I asked him, "What are you doing?" He shrugged. "Honestly, I don't even know anymore." That moment said more than anything else. He wasn't lacking direction. He was losing trust in himself. Because every time you restart, you teach your brain something dangerous. You don't finish what you start. And once that belief settles in, it becomes your identity, not consciously, but quietly, in the background of everything you do. So I asked him one question. "How long do you usually stick with something before you quit?" He paused. 2 weeks, maybe 3. That was the real problem. Not effort, not intelligence, time. He had never stayed long enough for anything to work. So instead of giving him another strategy, I told him something that sounded almost too simple. Don't change your life. Just stop restarting it. He laughed. It didn't sound powerful. It didn't sound like a breakthrough. But a few days later, he tried something different. Not a new system, not a full life reset, just one decision. He chose one thing, his health, and committed to continuing no matter what. Not perfectly, not intensely, just consistently. The first 2 weeks felt familiar. Motivation was high. Everything seemed easy. Then week 3 came. That's where it always ended. But this time something small and critical happened. He missed a workout. Normally, that would have been the trigger, the excuse to reset everything. I'll start again next week. But instead, he showed up the next day. No restart, no new plan, just continuation. That moment didn't look like success. No one would have noticed it. But that was the real turning point. Because for the first time, he broke the pattern. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2. And here's the part most people don't expect. Nothing dramatic happened at first. No instant transformation, no visible results, just repetition. But underneath that, something was changing. He stopped negotiating with himself. He stopped waiting to feel ready. He stopped treating discomfort as a signal to quit. And slowly, he became someone who followed through. By the 3rd month, the results started to show, not just physically, but mentally. He was calmer, more focused, less reactive. But the biggest shift wasn't external, it was internal. He trusted himself again. That's what restarting destroys. Every time you quit and reset, you break trust with yourself. You reinforce the idea that you won't stick with anything long enough to succeed. But every time you continue, especially when it's hard, you rebuild that trust. Research in behavioral science suggests that progress compounds over time through repeated action. But that only works if you stay consistent long enough for the effect to build. Restarting interrupts that process. It's like planting a seed, watering it for 2 weeks, then digging it up to check if it's growing, then planting it again somewhere else, then repeating the cycle. Of course nothing grows, not because the seed is broken, but because you never gave it time. That's what most people do with their lives. They keep moving the seed. They keep resetting the process, and then they wonder why nothing changes. So instead of asking, "What's the best plan?" ask something better. What can I stick with for the next 6 months, no matter what? Not perfect, not intense, just consistent. Because you don't need another fresh start. You've had enough of those. What you need is to stay. Stay when it's boring. Stay when it's slow. Stay when you don't feel like it. Because that's the moment most people leave. And that's exactly why they never get what they want. But if you can do one thing differently, if you can resist the urge to restart and choose to continue instead, you create something most people never build. Momentum. And once momentum is on your side, everything changes. Not instantly, not dramatically, but permanently. Because the moment you stop restarting is the moment your life finally begins. Chapter 2. Decide who you become. Your life isn't changing because you're still the same person. Not on the surface. Deep down. You can change your schedule. You can change your habits. You can even change your environment for a while. But if you don't change your identity, you will always return to what feels like you. That's why so many people stay stuck. They're trying to build a new life on top of an old identity, and it never holds. You don't rise to your goals. You fall back to who you believe you are. Think about it. If you see yourself as someone who lacks discipline, what happens the moment things get hard? You hesitate. You negotiate. You quit. Not because you don't know what to do, but because quitting feels consistent with who you think you are. A few years ago, I saw this play out with someone in my family. My cousin Lynn had been trying to lose weight for almost 5 years. Not casually, seriously. She tried everything: diet plans, workout programs, intermittent fasting, calorie tracking. She would start each new plan with intensity, determination, even excitement. For the first few weeks, she was unstoppable. Then slowly, something shifted. She'd skip 1 workout, then 2. Then she'd tell herself, "I'll restart next week." And just like that, she was back at the beginning. Again. But the hardest part wasn't the physical side. It was what happened internally. She stopped taking photos of herself. She avoided mirrors longer than she needed to. She started comparing herself to everyone around her, quietly, constantly. One night, we were talking after dinner, and she said something I'll never forget. "I don't think I'm the kind of person who can stay consistent." That sentence wasn't frustration, it was identity. And once you believe something like that, your actions start proving it true. Every missed workout becomes confirmation. Every small slip becomes evidence. And over time you stop trying, not because you don't care, but because you already decided who you are. That's the trap. Most people think they fail because of their habits. But habits are just a reflection. The real driver is identity. So instead of giving Lynn another plan, I asked her a different question. What would a consistent person do tomorrow? Not next month. Not in theory. Tomorrow. She didn't answer right away. Because for the first time, she wasn't thinking about what she wanted. She was thinking about who she needed to become. That shift changed everything. The next day, she didn't try to be perfect. She just acted like someone who takes care of their body. She went for a short walk. She drank more water. She stopped eating when she was full. None of it was extreme, but it was aligned. At first, it felt fake, like she was pretending to be someone else. But here's the twist most people miss. Every identity starts as an act. You don't find who you are. You build it through repeated proof. So, she kept going, day after day, not chasing results, not chasing motivation, just reinforcing a new identity. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who takes care of my body. Not perfectly, but consistently enough to start believing it. Weeks passed. Then something subtle happened. She stopped negotiating with herself. Before, every decision was a debate. Should I work out? Do I feel like it? Now there was no question. She just did it, because that's what people like her do. That's when everything became easier. Not physically, but mentally. And that's what most people underestimate. When your identity changes, you don't need constant discipline. You remove the resistance. By the 3rd month, the physical changes started to show. But more importantly, her behavior became stable. No more starting and stopping, no more dramatic resets, just steady, consistent action. And here's the part that matters most. The moment she changed wasn't when she lost weight. It was when she stopped seeing herself as someone who couldn't. That's when the outcome became inevitable. Behavioral science supports this idea in a powerful way. Research suggests that habits tied to identity are significantly more sustainable than those driven only by results. When your actions are connected to who you believe you are, they require less effort, less willpower, and less negotiation, because you're no longer forcing yourself. You're expressing yourself. That's the difference between temporary change and permanent transformation. Most people focus on outcomes. I want to make more money. I want to get in shape. I want to be more productive. But those are goals, and goals don't change behavior. Identity does. So instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? Ask something deeper. Who do I need to become to make this inevitable? Not someday. Now. Because once you decide who you are, your actions stop being optional. They become a standard. You don't wake up and ask, do I feel like doing this today? You act in alignment with your identity. And that removes one of the biggest obstacles in your life, decision fatigue. No more debating, no more overthinking, no more waiting, just action. That's why identity is the foundation of everything. Without it, discipline feels exhausting. With it, discipline becomes automatic. So if you want to change your life over the next 6 months, don't start with another plan. Start with a decision. Decide who you are. Write it down if you have to. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who doesn't quit. I'm someone who does what needs to be done. Not as motivation, as truth. Because the more you act in alignment with that identity, the more real it becomes. And once it becomes real, your life has no choice but to follow. Chapter 3. Discipline when you don't feel like it. Your feelings are not your strategy. That's the part most people don't want to accept, because it sounds uncomfortable. It removes the excuse. It takes away the safety of waiting for the right moment. But if you're honest, you already know this. If you only act when you feel like it, you will never stay consistent. You'll start when you're motivated. You'll stop when you're not. And your life will rise and fall with your emotions. That's not control, that's dependency. Most people are addicted to feeling ready. They tell themselves, I'll start when I feel more focused. I'll do it when I have more energy. I'll get serious when the timing is better. But that moment rarely comes. And even when it does, it doesn't last. A few years ago, I worked with someone named Marcus. He was smart, driven, ambitious, the kind of person who talked about big goals with real conviction. He wanted to build something of his own, escape the 9-to-5, create financial freedom. He wasn't lacking vision. He was lacking follow-through. Every time we talked, he had a new plan, a new idea, a new strategy he was excited about, and every time it sounded good. But when I asked him a simple question, how many days in a row have you actually worked on this? He never had a clear answer. 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week. Then something would interrupt it. He didn't feel like it. He got distracted. He lost momentum. And instead of continuing anyway, he stopped. One night, we were sitting in a quiet cafe after work. He looked exhausted, frustrated, stuck in his own head. I don't get it, he said. I know what to do. I just can't get myself to do it consistently. That sentence sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because it's not a knowledge problem. It's an emotional one. So I asked him something different. What if the problem isn't that you can't do it, but that you're waiting to feel like doing it? He paused. That question landed, because it exposed something most people never question. They believe action comes after motivation. But in reality, it's the opposite. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. So instead of giving him another productivity system, I gave him a simple rule. Do it, especially when you don't feel like it. At first, he resisted. It sounded too rigid, too uncomfortable, too unrealistic. But he agreed to try it for a week. Not perfectly, not for hours. Just one non-negotiable action per day, no matter how he felt. The first few days were easy. Then the resistance came. Day 4, he told me he didn't feel like doing anything. Normally, that would have been the end. But this time something changed. He did it anyway. Not with energy. Not with excitement, but with discipline. And that's where the shift began. Because discipline is not about intensity. It's about consistency without emotion. Over the next few weeks, something subtle but powerful happened. He stopped asking himself, do I feel like it? He replaced that question with, am I doing it or not? No debate, no negotiation, just action. And here's the twist most people miss. Discipline doesn't feel good at the beginning. It feels forced. It feels unnatural. It feels heavy. But over time, it removes something much worse. Uncertainty. When you rely on motivation, every day is a question. Will I show up today? Will I stay consistent? That constant decision drains you. But when you rely on discipline, there is no question. You already decided, and that makes everything simpler. Research in psychology suggests that willpower can be strengthened through repeated use, like a muscle. The more you act despite resistance, the easier it becomes to do it again. Not because it gets easier, but because you get stronger. By the second month, Marcus wasn't more motivated. He was more stable. He worked even when he was tired. He showed up even when he was distracted. He made progress even when it felt slow. And that consistency started to compound, not dramatically, but steadily. And for the first time, he didn't stop. That was the real win. Because most people don't need a better plan. They need a better relationship with discomfort. They need to stop seeing resistance as a stop sign and start seeing it as a signal that what you're doing matters, a signal that you're growing. A signal that you're moving beyond your old patterns. Because the truth is, the things that will change your life will rarely feel easy. They will feel inconvenient. They will feel uncomfortable. They will feel like something you'd rather avoid. And that's exactly why most people never do them consistently. But if you can learn to act without waiting for motivation, you unlock something powerful. You take control. You stop being reactive. You stop depending on your mood, your energy, your environment. You become someone who follows through, and that changes everything. So stop asking yourself if you feel ready. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop letting your emotions decide your future, because they won't lead you where you want to go. Instead, ask a better question. What needs to be done today? Then do it. Even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, even if you don't feel like it. Because that's what discipline looks like. Not loud, not exciting, but consistent. And over time, that consistency becomes identity. And that identity becomes your life. So don't wait to feel motivated. Act first. Because the people who change their lives aren't the ones who feel the most ready. They're the ones who act the most consistently, especially when they don't feel like it. Chapter 4. Kill what's killing your focus. You don't have a time problem, you have a distraction problem, and it's costing you more than you think. Not just your productivity, not just your progress, your future. Because every time your attention gets pulled away, you don't just lose a few seconds, you lose direction. And most people don't notice it happening. They think distraction is harmless. Just a quick check, just a short scroll, just a small break. But those small moments add up, and over time, they quietly take control of your life. A few years ago, I watched this play out with someone I knew named Kevin. Kevin was disciplined in theory. He had goals, clear ones. He wanted to build a business, improve his health, and get his life on track. He read the books, watched the videos, took notes, made plans. On paper, he was doing everything right, but in reality, nothing was moving. He would sit down to work, and 5 minutes later, his phone would light up. A notification, a message, a video suggestion. He'd tell himself, just a minute, then another, and suddenly an hour was gone. Not because he wanted to waste time, but because his attention had been taken, piece by piece. One day I asked him to check his screen time. He laughed at first. Then he looked. 6 hours. 6 hours a day, not working, not building, not improving, just consuming. That moment hit him harder than any advice ever could, because it wasn't about discipline anymore. It was about awareness. He wasn't failing because he didn't care. He was failing because his environment was designed for distraction, and he never questioned it. That's the part most people miss. They think focus is a personality trait. It's not. It's an environment. If your environment is full of distractions, your focus will always struggle, no matter how motivated you are. Research in cognitive science suggests that even brief interruptions can significantly reduce focus, and it can take over 20 minutes to fully regain deep concentration after being distracted. Think about that. One notification can cost you 20 minutes of real focus. Now multiply that by dozens of interruptions a day. That's not a small problem. That's a life pattern. Kevin didn't need more motivation. He needed fewer distractions, so instead of trying to be more focused, he did something different. He started removing what was breaking his focus. He deleted the apps that pulled him in. He turned off notifications. He created blocks of time where his phone wasn't even in the room. At first it felt uncomfortable, too quiet, too empty. He would reach for his phone without thinking, only to realize it wasn't there. That moment revealed something deeper. He wasn't just distracted, he was dependent. And that's the twist most people don't see. Distraction isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you get used to, something your brain starts to crave. Because every scroll, every notification, every quick hit of content gives you a small reward. And over time, that reward rewires your attention. It makes deep focus feel harder. It makes stillness feel uncomfortable. It makes real work feel slow. So when Kevin removed those distractions, he didn't just change his environment, he challenged his habits. The first few days were rough. He felt restless, bored, uncomfortable. Work felt heavier without constant stimulation, but he stayed with it. And slowly, something shifted. He started finishing tasks faster. He started thinking more clearly. He started going deeper instead of wider. By the second week, he noticed something he hadn't felt in a long time. Flow. That state where time disappears, where you're fully engaged, where progress feels natural, not forced. And that's when he realized something important. Focus isn't about forcing yourself to concentrate. It's about protecting your attention, because your attention is your most valuable asset. Where it goes, your life follows. If it's constantly scattered, your results will be scattered. If it's directed, your life will move forward. That's why eliminating distraction isn't optional. It's foundational. You can have the best plan in the world, but if your attention is constantly being pulled away, you'll never execute it. So instead of asking, how can I be more focused? Ask a better question, what's stealing my focus? Then remove it, not manage it, not reduce it, remove it. Because the truth is, you don't need more discipline to succeed. You need fewer things working against you. So look at your day, look at your habits. Look at what you reach for without thinking, and be honest. Is it helping you or holding you back? Because every distraction has a cost, not immediately, but over time. It delays your progress, it weakens your discipline, it fragments your attention, and most importantly, it keeps you from doing the work that actually changes your life. So if you're serious about the next 6 months, this is where you draw the line. You stop negotiating with distraction. You stop letting it decide how you spend your time. You take control of your environment, because once you do that, something powerful happens. You create space, space to think, space to act, space to grow. And in that space, focus becomes natural, progress becomes steady. And your life starts moving in a direction you can actually control. So don't underestimate this. Because what you remove from your life often matters more than what you add. And the moment you stop feeding distraction is the moment your focus finally comes back. Chapter 5. Take control of your time. You don't lack time. You're losing it. Quietly, daily, without even noticing. Because time doesn't disappear in big, obvious ways. It leaks through small decisions, through unconscious habits, through moments you tell yourself don't matter. And over time, those moments become your life. Most people believe they don't have enough time to change. They say, I'm too busy. I'll start when things calm down. I just need more time. But the truth is harder than that. You already have enough time. You're just not using it intentionally. A few years ago, I saw this clearly with someone I used to work with. Her name was Rachel. Rachel had a full-time job, long hours, constant deadlines, meetings that stretched into the evening. On the surface, she looked like the definition of busy. But she also had a goal. She wanted to build something of her own, a small online business. Nothing unrealistic, just something she could grow over time. The problem? She believed she didn't have time. I barely get through the day as it is, she told me. There's no way I can add more. That belief kept her stuck for months, not because it was completely wrong, but because she never questioned it. One evening after work, we were talking about her goals again. Same frustration, same conclusion. I just don't have the time. So I asked her something simple. Can you walk me through your day? Not the version she told herself, the real one. She hesitated. Then she started listing it out. Work, commute, dinner. Then came the part she usually ignored. Scrolling through her phone, watching videos. Just relaxing. An hour here, another hour there. By the end of it, she paused. That's probably 3 hours, she admitted. That moment changed everything. Because the problem wasn't that she didn't have time. It was that her time was unclaimed. And what you don't claim gets used by something else. That's the twist most people never see. Time isn't something you find. It's something you decide. Every hour already exists in your day. The question is, who controls it? You or your habits? Rachel didn't need a new schedule. She needed awareness. So instead of trying to add more time, she did something different. She started assigning it. 1 hour. That was the rule. 1 hour a day, no matter what, dedicated to her goal. Not after everything else was done, but scheduled, protected, non-negotiable. At first, it felt unrealistic. She was tired after work, mentally drained, unmotivated. But she didn't try to feel ready. She showed up anyway. The first few sessions weren't impressive. Slow progress, small steps, a lot of learning. But she kept going. 1 hour a day, no more, no less. And something interesting happened. She stopped saying, I don't have time. Because now she could see it. She wasn't finding time, she was using it differently. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2, and that 1 hour started to compound. Not dramatically, but consistently. By the 3rd month, she had built something real, a small audience, a working system, momentum. Not because she had more time than anyone else, but because she stopped wasting the time she already had. That's the shift. Time isn't your biggest limitation. Unclear priorities are. Because when everything feels important, nothing gets protected, and your time gets pulled in every direction. Research in time use behavior shows that people often underestimate how much time they spend on low-value activities. Hours disappear into passive consumption, without intention, without awareness. Not because people are lazy, but because they're not deliberate. And without intention, time defaults to comfort, not progress. That's why taking control of your time isn't about doing more. It's about choosing better, choosing what matters, choosing what moves your life forward, and protecting it. Because every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're saying no to something that could change your life. So instead of asking, where can I find more time? Ask a better question. What deserves my time? Then give it a place in your day. Not when you feel like it, not when you're free, but on purpose. Because the difference between people who change their lives and those who stay the same isn't time. It's how they use it. Rachel didn't quit her job. She didn't overhaul her life. She just made one decision: to stop giving her time away. And that changed everything. So look at your day. Not the version you tell yourself, the real one. Where does your time go? What do you give hours to without thinking? And more importantly, what are you not giving time to that actually matters? Because the next 6 months are already happening, whether you use them or not, whether you focus or not, whether you change or not, time will pass either way. The only difference is what you do with it. So take control, not all at once, not perfectly. Just one decision at a time, 1 hour, 1 block, 1 commitment. Because when you take control of your time, you take control of your life. And once that happens, everything else starts to align, not because life becomes easier, but because you finally decided what matters most. Chapter 6. Train yourself to do hard things. Your life isn't hard because you do hard things. It's hard because you avoid them. That's the part most people get backwards. They think discomfort is the problem. They think difficulty is the obstacle. So they spend their time trying to make everything easier. Easier routines, easier goals, easier paths. But what they don't realize is this: the more you avoid hard things, the harder your life becomes. Because avoidance doesn't remove difficulty, it delays it. And when it comes back, it's heavier, more complicated, more overwhelming. That's why people feel stuck. Not because life is too hard, but because they've trained themselves to escape it. A few years ago, I saw this clearly with someone I used to train with. His name was Alex. Alex wasn't weak. He just hated discomfort. So at the gym, he would always choose what felt manageable. Lighter weights, shorter sessions, familiar exercises. He told himself he was being consistent. And in a way, he was. He showed up regularly. But nothing changed. Same body, same strength, same results. Because he never pushed past what was comfortable. One day, after another workout that didn't challenge him, I asked him something simple. When was the last time you did something that actually felt hard? He laughed. Why would I want it to feel hard? That answer revealed everything. He wasn't training for growth. He was training for comfort. And that's the trap. Most people don't fail because they're not doing enough. They fail because they're only doing what feels easy. So they stay busy, but they don't move forward. Because growth doesn't come from repetition alone. It comes from resistance. That's the twist most people miss. Doing something consistently is not enough. You have to do something that challenges you, something that stretches you, something that forces you to change. So instead of changing his program, Alex tried something different. He changed his standard, every workout, one rule. Do one thing that feels uncomfortable, not everything, just one. One set that pushes him further, one exercise he usually avoids, one moment where he doesn't quit early. At first it was small, uncomfortable, but manageable. But that one decision started to shift something deeper. Because discomfort isn't just physical, it's psychological. It's the voice in your head saying, "This is enough. You've done enough. Stop now." And every time you listen to that voice, you reinforce it. But every time you ignore it, you weaken it. That's how you train discipline. Not by doing everything perfectly, but by doing one hard thing, especially when you don't want to. Weeks passed. Then something changed. Alex didn't just get stronger, he got more resilient. He stopped reacting to discomfort. He stopped seeing it as a signal to stop. Instead, he started seeing it as a signal that he was doing something right. That shift changed everything. Because the moment you redefine discomfort, you stop fearing it. And once you stop fearing it, you stop avoiding it. That's when real growth begins. Research in neuroscience suggests that exposure to manageable stress, what's often called adaptive stress, can actually strengthen your ability to handle future challenges. It builds resilience. It increases tolerance. It makes difficult situations feel less overwhelming over time. Not because the challenges disappear, but because you change. That's the key. Life doesn't get easier. You get stronger. And the only way to become stronger is to stop avoiding what's hard. That applies to everything. The hard conversation you've been avoiding. The work you keep postponing. The habit you know you need to build. Those are the things that will move your life forward, not the easy ones, not the comfortable ones, the hard ones. So if you want to change your life in the next 6 months, you need to stop asking, what's the easiest way to do this? And start asking, what am I avoiding because it's uncomfortable? Then face it, not all at once, just one thing at a time. Because doing hard things isn't about intensity, it's about exposure. The more you do them, the less power they have over you. And the less power they have over you, the more control you gain. That's what Alex discovered. By the 3rd month, he wasn't just stronger physically. He approached everything differently. He didn't back away from challenges, he leaned into them. At work, he took on tasks he would have avoided before. In life, he stopped delaying decisions. He stopped waiting for things to feel easy. Because he understood something most people don't. Comfort is not neutral, it's addictive. And the more you stay in it, the harder it becomes to leave. So if you want a different life, you have to build a different tolerance. A tolerance for effort, a tolerance for discomfort, a tolerance for doing what most people avoid. Because that's where the results are. Not in what's easy, but in what's hard. So don't try to redesign your entire life overnight. Start smaller. One hard thing a day. That's it. Make the call you've been avoiding. Do the work you've been delaying. Push past the point where you normally stop. Not to prove anything to anyone else, but to prove something to yourself, that you can do hard things. Because once you believe that, everything else becomes possible. And over time, those small moments of discomfort stack. They build resilience. They build confidence. They build identity. Until one day you look back and realize, the things that used to feel impossible are now just part of who you are. And that's when your life changes. Not because things got easier, but because you stopped avoiding what makes you grow. Chapter 7. Keep going when nothing shows. The hardest part isn't starting. It's continuing when nothing is happening. No results, no recognition. No clear sign that what you're doing is working. Just effort in silence. That's where most people stop. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, but because they can't see progress. And when you can't see progress, your brain starts asking dangerous questions. Is this even working? Am I wasting my time? Maybe I should try something else. That's the moment everything falls apart. Not because the process failed, but because you stopped trusting it. A few years ago, I saw this happen with someone I knew named Jason. Jason wanted to learn a new skill, something completely different from his job. He wasn't doing it for money at first, just to improve himself, to build something meaningful. So he started. Every day after work, he sat down and practiced. 1 hour, sometimes 2. No shortcuts, no distractions. At the beginning, it felt exciting. Everything was new. Every small improvement felt like progress. But after a few weeks, that feeling disappeared. He was still putting in the time, but nothing seemed to change. His skill didn't look better. His results didn't improve. His confidence dropped. It felt like he was stuck. That's when doubt started to creep in. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should try something else. That's where most people quit. Not at the beginning, but in the middle. The invisible phase. The phase where effort doesn't match results. And that's the twist most people never understand. Progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. Just because you can't see change doesn't mean it's not happening. Growth doesn't always show up immediately. Sometimes it builds quietly, under the surface, layer by layer. But if you stop too early, you never reach the point where it shows. Jason almost quit. One night, after another session that felt pointless, he closed his laptop and sat there, frustrated. "I've been doing this for weeks," he said. and I'm still bad. I asked him something simple. What did you do today? He told me. And yesterday? He told me again. Then I asked, have you missed a day? He shook his head. No. That was the answer. Because what he didn't see was consistency. He was measuring success by results. But he should have been measuring it by repetition. So I told him something he didn't expect. If you keep doing this, you're going to get good. It's just a matter of time. He didn't fully believe it, but he kept going. Not because he felt confident, but because he decided to trust the process, and that's where the real shift happens. Not when you see results, but when you continue without them. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And slowly something started to change, not all at once, but noticeably. Things that felt hard became easier. Mistakes became less frequent. Confidence started to grow. Then one day it clicked. Not dramatically, but clearly. He wasn't guessing anymore. He understood what he was doing. That's when everything accelerated. Because once you break through the invisible phase, progress compounds fast. But here's the truth most people don't realize. That breakthrough only happens because of the work you did when nothing was showing. Not because of one perfect moment, but because of consistent effort over time. Research in performance psychology suggests that skill development often follows a delayed curve. Long periods of slow, almost invisible progress, followed by rapid improvement once a certain level of mastery is reached. That's why patience is not optional, it's required, because if you expect immediate results, you'll quit before the real progress begins. Jason didn't become great overnight, but he became consistent. And consistency carried him through the phase where most people stop. That's what made the difference. So if you're in that phase right now, the one where it feels like nothing is working, understand this. You're closer than you think, not because you see it, but because you've stayed. And staying is what most people can't do. So instead of asking, why isn't this working? You'll say, ask a better question. Am I still showing up? Because if the answer is yes, you're on the right path. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if it's slow, even if no one notices. Because the truth is the work is working. You just can't see it yet. So don't restart, don't switch paths, don't quit in the middle of the process, stay. Stay when it feels pointless, stay when it feels slow, stay when you doubt yourself. Because that's the moment where growth is happening, quietly, under the surface. 8. Building something you can't see yet, but will soon, and when it finally shows, it won't feel like luck. It will feel like something you earned because you kept going, when nothing showed. Chapter 8. Become unrecognizable. 6 months from now, you can be a completely different person, not slightly improved, not marginally better. Unrecognizable, not to the world, to yourself. That's the part most people don't fully understand. Real change isn't just external, it's internal. It's the moment you look at your old habits, your old mindset, your old reactions, and they no longer feel like you. But here's the truth. That level of transformation comes with a cost. You don't just gain a new life, you lose your old one. And most people aren't ready for that. They want change, but they want to keep everything familiar. The same routines, the same environment, the same people. And that's why they stay the same. Because you can't become someone new while holding on to everything that made you who you are now. A few years ago, I saw this happen with someone named Eric. Eric had always been the comfortable guy, reliable, easygoing, never pushing too hard. He had a stable job, a predictable routine, and a circle of friends who lived the same way. There was nothing wrong with his life. But there was nothing growing either. Deep down, he knew it. He felt it in small moments. When he saw people doing more. When he thought about what he could become. When he realized he was capable of more than he was living. But every time that thought came up, he pushed it away. Because change felt risky, uncomfortable, disruptive. Then something shifted. Not because of a big event, but because of a quiet realization. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid of becoming someone different. Because becoming different meant saying no to things he used to say yes to. Outgrowing conversations that once felt normal. Feeling disconnected from people who hadn't changed. That's the part no one talks about. Growth changes your environment, even if you don't want it to. So for the first time, Eric made a decision, not to improve, but to commit. 6 months, no excuses. Not perfect, just consistent. At first, nothing dramatic happened. He woke up earlier. He worked on himself after work. He started paying attention to his habits. It looked small from the outside, but inside everything was shifting. He started noticing things he didn't see before. How much time he wasted. How often he avoided discomfort. How easily he settled. That awareness was uncomfortable, but it was necessary, because you can't change what you refuse to see. By the second month, the gap started to grow, not between him and his goals, between him and his old life. The things he used to enjoy didn't feel the same. The conversations felt repetitive. The habits felt limiting. And for a while, that felt lonely. That's another truth most people don't expect. Growth can feel isolating, not because you lose people, but because you change faster than your environment. And in that space, you have two choices. Go back to what's familiar, or keep moving forward into what's unknown. Most people go back because it's easier, because it's comfortable, because it feels like home. But Eric didn't. Not this time. He stayed, even when it felt awkward, even when it felt uncertain, because he understood something new. If he went back, nothing would change. So he kept going. By the third month, his behavior was different. He didn't just think differently. He acted differently. He followed through. He chose discipline over comfort. He stopped negotiating with himself. And people started noticing. Not in a dramatic way, but in small comments. You've changed. You're more focused. You seem different. At first, he didn't know how to respond, because the change didn't feel sudden. It felt gradual, like something that had been building quietly. And that's exactly what it was. By the 6th month, the difference was undeniable. His routine was structured. His mindset was sharper. His confidence was stronger. But the biggest change wasn't visible. It was internal. He no longer identified with the person he used to be. That version of him, the one who avoided discomfort, who stayed in familiar patterns, who delayed growth, felt distant, almost like a memory. And that's the twist. You don't fix your old self. You outgrow it. You don't become better by holding on. You become better by letting go. Letting go of habits that keep you small. Letting go of environments that hold you back. Letting go of identities that no longer serve you. That's what transformation actually is. Not addition, subtraction, and reconstruction. Research in psychology suggests that identity change often involves both adoption and abandonment, building new behaviors while simultaneously letting go of old ones. That process can feel uncomfortable, even destabilizing, because it challenges your sense of self. But that discomfort is a sign of growth, because you're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. So if you want the next 6 months to truly transform your life, understand this. You will not recognize yourself at the end of it. Not if you do it right. Because the version of you that exists today cannot produce the life you want tomorrow. A different version of you has to exist. And that version is built through consistency, discipline, discomfort, day after day. So don't be surprised if things feel different, if people react differently, if your priorities shift, if your environment changes. That's part of the process. Because you're not just building a better life. You're becoming someone new. So don't hold on to who you used to be. Don't try to stay comfortable. Don't try to stay familiar. Let it change. Let it feel unfamiliar. Let it stretch you. Because on the other side of that discomfort is the life you've been trying to build and the person you've been trying to become. So give yourself 6 months, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to see what happens when you stop holding yourself back. Because if you do it right, 6 months from now, you won't just have better habits. You'll have a different identity, a different mindset, a different life. And the person you are today won't even recognize you anymore. 6 months. That's all it takes to change everything if you actually stay. Not perfectly, not intensely, but consistently. Over the course of this video, you've seen something most people overlook. Real transformation doesn't come from motivation. It doesn't come from starting over again and again. And it definitely doesn't come from waiting until you feel ready. It comes from what you do when it's hard. You learn that restarting is the hidden reason most people stay stuck. That identity, not goals, is what truly drives your behavior. That discipline matters most when you don't feel like showing up. That distraction silently steals your future. That time isn't missing. You just need to take control of it. That doing hard things builds the strength your life requires. And that the hardest phase, the one where nothing seems to be working, is actually where real progress is happening. And finally, you saw the truth most people avoid. If you stay consistent long enough, you won't just change your habits. You'll become someone completely different. That's the goal. Not a temporary upgrade, a permanent transformation. But here's the part that matters most. None of this works unless you apply it. Not next week. Not someday. Now. Because the next 6 months are going to pass anyway. Whether the question is, will you use them or will you repeat them? So here's something simple you can start with. Pick one thing. Just one. Not 10 goals. Not a complete life overhaul. One area that actually matters to you. And commit to it for the next 6 months. No restarting, no quitting after a bad day, no waiting to feel motivated, just show up. Even when it's boring, even when it's slow, even when nothing seems to be happening. Because that's exactly where the change begins. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay. And if you do that, if you truly commit, you'll start to notice something shift. Your actions will feel more natural. Your discipline will feel less forced. Your confidence will come from proof, not hope. And one day you'll look back and realize something powerful. You didn't just change your life, you changed yourself. So don't underestimate what you're capable of over the next 6 months. Most people won't do this. That's exactly why it works. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone who needs it. Someone who's stuck in that cycle of starting and stopping. Someone who knows they're capable of more, but hasn't been able to follow through. You never know. This could be the moment that changes their direction. And if you're ready to go deeper, to keep building this mindset, and to stay consistent on your journey, make sure you come back for the next video. Because this is just the beginning. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.